Okay, welcome back everyone to my video podcast on the future of business and technology. Today's topic is AI-powered virtual pets. And to help me untangle this fascinating topic, I'm joined today by Fabian Kamberi, who is the CEO and co-founder of the indie gaming studio Slay, the company behind the viral game Pengu, which we will dive into in a lot more detail. Hi, Fabian.
Hey, how you doing?
Where are you joining us from today?
Berlin, Germany, in our office.
And this is where you're from originally, from Germany?
I moved here when I was 18, so quite 6 years ago, with my co-founders. Yeah,
There's some interesting things going on in Berlin, right? It's a hot place for gaming development and AI at the moment, right?
I do think so. Yeah, definitely.
So I would love to know a little bit more about what you do and about the company that you founded before we can go into Pengu as a game, which is, I believe, currently the biggest AI character app in the US and has had more than 5 million registered users worldwide, probably more by now. So maybe you can give us a brief overview about yourself
Yeah,
and about Slay.
sure. So I'm Fabian. I'm 25, one of the co-founders at Slay. Um, our background has been always kind of consumer apps and making them fun. I think since young age, with one of my co-founders, Jannes, we have been building these apps. I think back in the days, very exciting times when Apple was opening up APIs and you were able to get viral quite quickly through the product. Um, Slate has been founded in 2022 with the premise of seeing that there's new technology evolving beyond the horizon of. Um, GPT got launched there, and new viral hooks, new mechanisms were established, and consumers have something exciting and something that's quite new on their phones and devices, and that was the original starting point of the company. I think I want to make clear we're not a gaming company, nor are we a pure social company. I think game studios historically have been facing the issue of acquisition. I think our skill was basically how do you acquire users for free, given the fact that the K factor, the viral coefficient was very high. Um, Over the course, we have launched multiple apps that went number one in the App Store in the US, in Europe, in Australia, and that's kind of our background. In general, Pengu has been launched in October 2023, and yeah, the main premise is how do you create something that's delightful and exciting for users, leveraging the best of consumer games, mobile games, mechanics, but also leveraging what has been working very well in social, which is friendship and virality.
Yeah, I'd love to not understand a little bit more about the game Pengu
Mhm.
and the idea is to have virtual pets that you
Yeah.
raise, right? So how does that work? And raising virtual pets and what's the idea behind it and why are people interested in it?
I think it's right at the human nature, right? When raising a character, raising a pet, raising a kid, that's what humans really are into and have been for years and dozens of years. And what we just did basically was we transcribed a human need, a human behavior, such as raising a real pet and making it exciting through forms of social and games. I think the app and the product um, is very innovative given the fact that it's inherently social, so you have to raise it with a friend. It's not like a typical Tamagotchi where you raise the character by yourself and at some point you get bored. And on the other side, I would say the mechanisms in 3D making the characters smarter haven't been done yet on the market, and I think that has been the work that we put in, and therefore the result of us growing quite fast.
So I'm particularly interested in the use of AI in the gaming development as well as how the game is run. So maybe we can start with the game development stage because there's huge scope for using generative AI and other AI tools to help us develop better games, develop them faster. What's your take on that and what's your experience?
Obviously, entire engineering team works now with Cursor and all the other tools such as Anthropic. I think we have been very happy with that. All in all, I think it enables you to ship faster, and therefore development cycle gets more efficient. All in all, I think from an engineering standpoint, given that the entire culture is first principle engineering, it has been very good to us. Um, I think on the product side for the app itself, it enables you for the first time ever to make a character smart. So if you think about the idea that your Tamagotchi is a boy or a girl or has specific hobbies or a job, now you can do it. And what we've been doing basically is we were leveraging LLMs on scale um, to give Pengu personality and character traits, which has been super exciting to us. So we have launched a diary feature where Pengu lives an own life. We have launched obviously the one-to-one chat where you text with Pengu but also have voice features. So that has been amazing for us, and I think it has been feeling very natural given the fact that users basically had these narratives already in their mind, and we had to just make them happen.
Interesting. So using AI tools to help you accelerate the development stage, but you're also including AI as a core feature of your character, which then uses large language models to become smart and is able to really play a specific character and develop relationships with the people raising it, right?
Exactly.
So, and this, I guess, brings me to this whole idea of social gaming, which I think this is where you want to position the game. Why do we need that? Why is there a need for virtual pets? Because you can, I guess, people would argue we've had pets for thousands of years. Why do we now need a virtual pet that we raise in this social setting in this virtual world?
I do think it's very simple. If you think about how many people in the US have real life pets, you see that there's a huge demand and people actually loving that on scale. I think we have been the first company that has been able to get users to engage with an AI character on scale, which hasn't been done before. Usually, if you look into other products, it has been very much in verticalized niches. So I do think that if you create a trustworthy and lovable IP virtual character, you're able to get people very excited about it on scale. And I think it feels natural. It doesn't feel forced. I think our job has been to make sure how do you get users excited about it and build a product that has several forms of engagement. For example, games. Again, we're not particularly a game, but rather a product that focuses on raising a character together with friends. And that has been kind of, I think, the success strategy so far. I hope we can continue with that, and that's why it felt so natural. Yeah.
Good. So what sort of safeguards do you put in place? Because I can
Mhm.
see different dimensions here coming in. On the one hand side, there's a risk that people develop almost an unnatural obsession with their virtual pet, and some create a relationship that goes beyond what you should have as a little more by a game. That's one risk. And then another risk is, how do you control the narrative when you use AI to create dialogues? If you use generative AI and large language models to create dialogue and characters,
Mhm.
what safeguards have you got in place so it doesn't go into conversations that you don't want it to go to?
Yeah, it's a very interesting question. I think in general, what we've been doing, first things first, is understand obviously who our users are. Usually they are uh, younger. Therefore, you need to find obviously the models themselves have pre-filtering, which makes the job easier. Then you basically work backwards and figure out what kind of risks do you have when users build a relationship with the character. I do think that given the fact that you raise the character together with a friend, the topics that you discuss and engage with are a little more different than with a typical chatbot. I think one thing I want to highlight is that we don't have any NSFW experiences on the platform because again, Pengu feels more like a real pet and like a friend, something like a family member.
So do you want to
And
explain what that means?
yeah, basically, I think historically, if you look into chatbots, the biggest issue has been that uncovered behind like positive experience was that primarily users have been engaging with it for NSFW purposes, chatbot romances, and I think that is a. I'm with you on this, Bernard. It's like a less positive experience. Let's frame it that way. And our thesis was, how do you create something that, from first principles, users really love and engage with, and build a very different bond than maybe what has been historically been done in chatbots. And that in itself, I think, when we started to implement then the safeguards on one-to-one chat, has been our premise, and I think what we have been focusing also on. on the technical side, what's happening is you try to figure out obviously in which direction does the character go. Usually the Pengu has a very neutral character, and the way you engage with it, Pengu will evolve with you. So I think we've been doing a good job so far. I think the stuff that we have observed and the way we try to frame our kind of things that users might um, encounter with Pengu, so far it has been good. I do think that is one of the most serious topics in our company, and there's not much other things that have higher priority than obviously the safety and security. And I think if you implement it from day one as a company and you prioritize on a safe and social experience, you're able to create a net positive impact. And I think it aligns obviously very well with your business objectives, which is again a trustworthy and lovable product.
And do you have any fears that people could develop this real attachment to their virtual pet? Because I think we've seen this with Tamagotchis in the past, where people almost saw it as a real friend, as a real pet in their homes, and now we have the virtual version of it that they can take with them all day long on their smartphones. And how do you make sure that there's longevity in all of this as well? Because these games normally have a lifespan, right? So do you make sure that when people have this pet which they are attached to, that this can actually live on for as long as they want it?
I think it's a very philosophical question, and it depends. I think how you and I and maybe other humans will assess this. At some point, I think technology will evolve towards a point where I'm not sure if we will have the discussion in 15 or 20 years, or whether it becomes something very normal to engage with a virtual character. I think what we want to do is definitely contribute to it positively. Therefore, we made it social inherently, so it's not just human to AI, but more human to human, and the AI basically enriches the experiences that you have with your real life friends. I think that implies in itself a very different experience than with just a typical chatbot. But I'm with you on this. I think it's a topic that we see. I mean, users love Pengu. They talk to Pengu for hours a day, and it's a dilemma that you have when you build something that scales and hopefully continues to scale. Is um, where do you put the foot on the gas pedal and where do you accelerate it? I think on the other side, the business objective is yes, you want to have something that users love for years. And if you just go into the App Store reviews, I think you will see that now with 150,000 reviews in the US, people really fell in love with Pengu and they have a net positive experience basically with their relationships, close friends, and the character basically accelerates that. And I think that's the thing we want to double down when it comes to longevity. How do you make Pengu feel like a real friend, a real family member, knowing obviously yes, this is on my device, yes, this is not my real sister, my real dog, but at the end of the day, what's extremely powerful is if Pengu helps you to have a better relationship and makes date recommendations or checks in on your friend or you have a group chat to do homework. I think we did a very great job on creating something long lasting, sustainable, but also something that is net positive to society, specifically to younger users.
And I guess the reason you focused on the social element of it is that you wanted to create the relationship between those two people raising the pet together, right? Is this is how you bring in the human connection and make sure it's not just about AI? What's your thinking there?
You summarize it well. I think that's exactly the thesis. It's at some point, we are all humans and we all look at our phones, but the social element is just, and I think people forget obviously how important it is that we have a family and we have close friends. And if you have something cute and funny in the middle that makes kind of positive plausibility, I think that's exciting. And that's what we did. I think when you give love to Pengu, it implies that you think about your friend and you're raising something together. So this is a funny social mechanic. The gamified mechanic is that you obviously progress together and you achieve stuff and you play games. Then the AI character side of things enables unlimited content and experiences to check in on you and send you personal notifications. So in my case, I've been in the US for 3 weeks and my girlfriend messaged Pengu about my trip and she said, "Hey, Fabian's going to be away for 3 weeks." And Pengu was checking in on her and it really worked. It really worked. It's not just like something that I just made up. It actually works and people love it, and that makes me happy and proud. And I think we would need to double down on it, and that in itself again ends up in more engagement and people using the product more often and not just churning away because there's a positive emotional attachment to it.
Interesting. So what happens when you have two people that have raised a pet together and then they fall out and they're no longer friends? Because these things happen, especially among children. What
Yeah.
happens to the character?
Usually, what people do is they write on Reddit or on Discord or on TikTok that they would love to raise a new character with someone else, or they invite a friend. It's a great idea. So we launched a solo raising feature where you can basically then raise Pengu by yourself. So these things are obviously very natural and happen specifically for demographics that are younger, definitely.
So I'd love to get your take on the future of AI-enabled characters in social platforms, in games,
Yeah,
in the wider digital world. Where do you see this going?
I think in a long future, I do see that everyone will have virtual friends at some point and virtual characters that we might engage very differently with. So let's say I have a character that I raise with my girlfriend and I have a character that I raise with my mom. The engagement might be very different, but the character has specific utilities and forms of engagement. So it might be more like a fun and casual experience. We see a lot of younger users specifically talking to Pengu about their homework. I think given that we have been doing quite a good job on long-term context windows, the experience is actually very well. So Pengu knows basically your last math exam and what you could have done better maybe. And that's, I think, the super exciting part that we want to uncover. And I think the question is what goes beyond the chatbot and how do you make it multidimensional, make it fun, make it exciting. And that's, I think, one thing that we as a company obsess a lot with, um, making it fun, making it net positive, and several form factors. And I think historically, when you look into how Slay evolved, we have been trying always to make good experiences for users. So I think the future is everyone will have virtual friends at some point and will engage with them very differently. And the most important thing is obviously how do you create this environment where it feels net positive and it is net positive to the user.
Yeah, because there's clearly a danger that if we all start raising pets and have virtual friends, that it makes us more isolated rather than less lonely, right?
Exactly. Specifically, I think when it's just you and the AI, and when it's just you and the AI in a room talking, and you have all these narratives for let's say weeks, this might be, I think, and this can end up in a negative downward spiral. I'm with you on this, and that's why we thought it would be so important to leverage real life experiences and real life friends. And you have to raise a character with a friend. There is no other option initially when you sign up to Pengu. And I think this is at its core of what we are building actually, because I don't think that the future is just me talking to an AI character.
No, I agree. I would love to understand the business model behind this as well, because this is a free-to-use app. Running these apps costs a lot of money, especially when you involve AI. Um, how do you make money? What's the business model behind all of this, and what's your
Yes,
plan for the future?
yes, sure. So we have been monetizing based on subscriptions, in-app purchases, and ads. I think it's very different per region, per country, per user cohort. Um, we have the so-called Pengu Pass subscription. We have in-app purchases in terms of cosmetics that you can buy to customize your Pengu. We have in-app purchases when it comes to the games. You get rewards if you watch rewarded ads, and it's very different. And the interesting thing is, given the distribution, it's viable. So that has been the playbook we have been using right from the get-go, and I think it has been has been treating us well so far. And you can build something on scale, and yeah.
Very good. A lot of my audience comes from a business perspective. What do you think companies can learn from some of the things that you have put in place here in terms of engaging with customers, using AI more effectively? Do you think there's anything that travels across into the wider business world?
I do think so. I think thinking from first principles in an AI landscape is especially important because companies tend to integrate these solutions just for the sake of it sometimes, and it gets dangerous given the fact that the question: do consumers or businesses you try to sell to actually want this? And it sounds super, I would say, yeah, intuitive and obvious, but I think we have seen that ourselves, which is, does the user really care about the feature to talk to Pengu, or do they actually want person's notifications? And I do think it doesn't matter whether you build something and fun and exciting in consumer, or whether you are more on the, I would say, serious side of things. At the end of the day, it really comes down to the customer needs and what do customers really want. And the same we see with you with Pengu. And I think the only answer is, at the end of the day, A/B tests and radical testing and being obsessed with data and making sure that you have quantifiable results. I think there's no other substitute. I think definitely it's worth trying, but we also saw that the broad landscape, and I think beyond our bubble of consumer technology, um, people are not yet all so onboarded on fully native AI experiences, and you would need to bridge the gap. And I think that's something that we've been trying and have been obsessed with Pengu. Is first, obviously, build a product, a character that people love, and make it trustworthy, and make it also earn the right to ship something with AI. Because yes, you have a maybe 45-year lady that has never engaged with a chatbot and might be her first time. And how do you make that safe and exciting at the same time, and not feel, I think, that it's unnatural and unsafe, and that these things, I think, you can only solve through testing and feeling natural, and not just saying, hey, this is an AI bot at the end of the day. But because people obviously are a little bit afraid of these things, so need the empathy also.
So your company is very much data driven, that everything you implement is A/B tested. You see what is working, what isn't working, and then you focus on the data driven insights.
Exactly. I think two things: data, and at the end of the day, safety, and also making sure we always have the user first. And this was, I think, the most important lesson that we had made in the last 2 years building Slay, which was always, always, always have the user first. There's no other substitute. Because if you don't have the user first, you will lose against whoever. But the trust and the love that users give you, you cannot betray. And there's no other point. And it again, I think also when other founders maybe that start on building consumer apps that also want to top the charts or have so many users, I always tell them, always have the user first. There is no shortcut.
Very good. So what would be your key lessons or key pieces of advice for anyone trying to learn from what you have done? What has been the hardest? What have you learned? Could you give any tips from a business perspective?
I think leave the bias at home and really try to make something people want. This means, per definition, that every thesis you have needs to be radically tested, specifically when you start out, because that's how you save time and you're efficient. So let's say you want to build a new app, and your idea is to start a, let's say, a subscription-based fitness tracker. And obviously, we all have our bias when building something. How might this look, and what's the name of it? And at the end of the day, it comes down to what is the utility, because the attention span got so small of consumers and users. So provide the value as soon as possible, be tactical about what you ship, and cut out a lot of stuff and focus on the core. I think this is, from a product standpoint, what matters the most. And also, as an entrepreneur, I would say, or a builder, or like a product leader in a company, leave the ego at home and follow the data. And I think if you have a repeatable testing process going for weeks or months, you will find success, because there's no other chance than, let's say, you want to build this fitness tracker. Let's assume a fitness tracker is what the market needs, and you want to make it exciting. And you say, we test now for 2 months and we try different hooks and we go repeatedly after activation. So we test the registration, then we test the core loop, then we test the core funnel and monetization. But we always get out of this iteration within very quantifiable answers, saying, okay, we were able to increase the conversion rate by 0.5%. What is the industry benchmark? Does it make sense? And that's what we also did when we started. But now also in the company, we have something that's so-called projects. Projects are basically initiatives in the product that you are launching in a team. They are quantifiable in metrics, and then you break down these projects in releases. And every release, you're also again able to quantify with 2 to 3 metrics that are at the end of the day either higher or lower than the benchmark, the control group. And I think this is something that needs this discipline, and needs to have obsessive behavior towards being in the details.
Mm.
Yeah.
The other aspect I would like to understand and get your advice or learning points from is from a technology perspective. So I would love to understand your technology stack, the kind of decisions you've made in choosing certain ways of storing data, using AI, running the apps. What does your technology stack looks like, and what have you learned along the way?
We have learned along the way to keep it as straightforward as possible. And at some point, you need to be an innovator, and in several forms, you need to be a fast follower. So obviously, rely on the current tech stack, which is JavaScript, TypeScript, React Native, building an app, scoring, building. I think reliable on scale needs a specific tech stack that's at the end of the day looks always the same. When you build a database, you use usually Postgres. The same goes when you want to innovate in AI and you want to have long-term context windows. What creative ways do you have, and what ideas might be there, and then following obviously and asking for advice. And I think I think when you start out and you're young, when you're early 20s, you obviously you're not you don't have everything in mind, and you have to figure stuff out, and you ask for advice and you understand, okay, what we have and the data that we have and the things that really users care about are the most holiest thing that we have. So take this super serious from day zero. And that's kind of, I think, what we have learned, which is be very fast, be super ambitious, but again, have the user first and transcribe that on a technology standpoint. If that sprint takes us 1 week longer, but everything is stored safely and securely, this is a well spent time. Because long term, if we want to build a massive company and become the biggest company for virtual characters, virtual friends, you will not have a shortcut. People will ask you about what is happening, and that's, I think, what we have been doing already, and hope to continue also.
Amazing. So where do you see that going? Is your ambition to become the world's largest company for virtual characters, or
Yes,
what's your ambition? That's the ambition. Wow, that's excellent. And in terms of technology, what other things are you looking at? Because when I look at the gaming space, the beyond AI, the other technology that I'm particularly excited about is having more immersive technology, bringing in augmented virtual reality. Is this something that you see on the horizon for your own games?
definitely. I think the 3D space is super interesting to us. So we are open sourcing a lot of things around Godot, the 3D engine. We see a lot of opportunity when it comes to turning 3D experiences, leveraging AI to create unlimited behavior patterns with your Pengu and visualizing this. I do think that, again, some things you need to be a fast follower on, and then there's one or two bets you want to be an innovator. And for us, I think it's very obvious, given that the character's in 3D and we want to make the character feel more like human, that this is a core focus point for us. And I think there's the future also for games specifically. We all had to, I think gaming companies, again, when they asked us, how do you get distribution? I think the typical LTV, CAC, CPI game, it doesn't work anymore. And you would need to find clever ways to make users excited about the product and share that product, and get as much free surface as possible. If free surface per definition means getting an invite or getting a user to share something on other social platforms, and then finding clever ways, again, to incentivize users, you are able to grow very fast. And I think that's something that the gaming landscape has been missing, and goes beyond just, hey, I want to acquire a user, and if we are below a specific number of costs, we will be profitable, and then we just scale it up. And I think this is not what consumers actually want.
No, that's exciting. When you look into the future of technology, what technologies do you keep a close eye on, or what are you particularly excited about looking ahead?
For us personally, I think it's interesting to see where the costs per token are going. Obviously, I think it's an exciting time building. For the first time ever, you can build our vision on scale, kind of like creating digital life. That's what we tell ourselves and the team. And I think it's one of the most exciting ones that's out there to us. I think there's no better time than building now in consumer, since I think most of the VCs and investors are also focused on B2B experiences and opportunities and building layers on top. But everyone asks themselves, where's the application layer? I do think now is the time to build in consumer. And if you're a consumer trailblazing company, you're able to innovate from a technology standpoint. And I think we will hopefully at some point, reach specific ceilings and hopefully then innovate ourselves. And that's what we did with the 3D engine, open sourcing that for React Native and Godot soon. And I do think that every company has to operate that way because it's net positive for the innovation and the speed. And that's particularly what I'm excited about. Obviously, seeing costs going down.
Very good. Thank you so much for your time today, Fabian. That was fascinating, and I
Thank you.
wish you all the success and hopefully that your vision becomes a reality and you create amazing virtual characters in the future.
Thank you so much. Means a lot to me. I appreciate that.
Thank you. And for anyone who ever wants to rewatch this, simply head to my YouTube channel where you can find this conversation and hundreds of others on the future of business and technology. Thank you.